this is Digital Music Trends. It's a Midem 2013 coverage, and it's day 3 of the conference. So I'm really happy to be here with Lang. So hi, and thanks for coming on the show. It's an honor to have you on.
Thank you, thank you.
So let's talk about what's It was really interesting to hear you talk today at the conference, and hear your thoughts on technology and how that's going to shape both the future of music and how it's consumed, and also education on that front.
Sure.
So first of all, let's talk about how music is consumed. Social media. You're a big proponent of social media, and you are on Twitter and Facebook a lot. And how do you see people really engaging with not just yourself but also your music through channels like Spotify and all these new streaming sites that are out there?
I think all those new platforms, such as Spotify, I think it's a very cool idea.
Yeah.
And we all create pages, personal artist pages on those wonderful new platform for distributing music.
Absolutely.
And I think we need that, actually. We actually need the platform to share classical music.
Yeah.
And not only music itself, but also educational component.
Sure.
I think it's also important, like masterclass, the educational events.
Yeah.
Very creative programs.
Absolutely.
So I think there are many things we can still,
with
those ideas.
Absolutely. And talking about music education, of course, I heard an interview where you were talking about how there's 15 million kids in China that are learning piano, and how important it is that you perform to as many of them as possible, and that you reach out to as many of them as possible. Has the piano culture in China really exploded recently, or is it a phenomenon that has been going on for a while?
It's actually already been for a while, since when I was a kid.
Yeah.
What you call the piano hit. Or piano fever. And it's getting bigger now because every family, if they want, I think there's a way to afford a piano these days. So somehow piano become even more popular. But during my time, a lot of families still can't afford to buy the piano.
Of course.
So therefore, also many musicians, when they learn piano, not necessarily they like to be a pianist. They just like to play and then maybe compose a song, or being a pop star. I mean, that's also people like from the West, people like Alicia Keys, Lady Gaga, many of the John Legend, many of the wonderful musicians, Elton John, David Foster, they all start as a classical pianist.
Yes.
And the same thing with the Asian artists, from China, from Korea. A lot of them are starting, like one of my good friend Jay Cho. He started as a classical pianist, and then he became now the biggest songwriter for pop music. So see, everything is possible from piano.
Right. That's for sure. And talking about the way in which you deal also with the popular culture or side of things, because of course you are incredibly famous in the classical world, but you also have crossed over into the popular world to be very well known as a pianist and a figure in classical music, which is great. So how do you deal with, for example, collaborations like the one you've done with John Legend, and how do you take those and then also go back to do extremely technical and proficient performances on the classical side? Can you split your personality kind of that way?
I mean, I don't think I'm actually splitting personalities or creating type of new music. It just you just find common in music, common interest. For example, I mean, in the past I worked very closely. I mean, in the future we will also, with Herbie Hancock.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just
a legend.
Legend. I mean, musician, great personality, and it's just so joyful and to work with him, and it's a really great honor. It's not because he's a jazz musician or I'm a classical musician. It's just we get along so well, and I got great inspiration from him.
Yeah, and it's just music.
It's just music in general in the end. And I mean, with John Legend recently, same thing, because he still plays piano very well, and he composed very well. I mean, I really like what he does in his field. And then so when we're doing things, I'm still playing classical style. And he does his style. So in a way, we're not, we're not really try to break the boundaries. We're trying to utilize new ideas to do our things. So he still does his things. I'm still do my stuff.
Yeah, and I absolutely understand that, because I got introduced to classical music a lot when Pavarotti used to do concerts in my town in Modena.
Sting with many great.
And I used to go there when I was 9, 10 years old, and that really introduced me to opera and
right. And you hear Pavarotti still sings like Pavarotti. It's not that he's starting pop.
Of course, of course, yeah. And looking at technology as an enabler also for you as a recording artist, of course. How do you feel about being in the studio and recording an album? How do you go about that process, and do you get involved at all in the sound of your piano and how your piano sounds in the recording?
Yeah, I think more and more I'm getting involved. First recording, you talk to your producer and get a lot of great suggestion from the recording team.
Yeah,
but then you listen many years later, and you're recording your current album, you find how do you change from those years, and what's the process. And now, obviously, when I make a recording, I have something to say about what kind of sound I wanted to hear.
Yeah.
Which is very important. Otherwise, you will never find yourself. No. You need to have certain identity from your recordings. It's different than live recording. It's very different. When you are in the studio, there's a lot of rooms you can try to really being part of the recreation, and that's the fun part in the studio.
Yeah,
today if you're not happy, stop making recording and come back tomorrow. Not like concert. You no matter how happy or how sad you are, you need to play well.
Absolutely.
So it's a different situation.
Sure, and of course, it's also a way of giving a mood to a whole album. Which is consistent.
Right.
And that's
right. The whole picture and how you work precisely on certain things on the third day.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, or the fifth day, you're thinking a different way of interpreting, but in the end, you need to find a way to all fit in.
Yeah.
Somehow. So that's the balance issue.
Of course, you should keep. And in terms of audio quality, of course, a lot has been said about audio quality being the next step for music online. So, now we have fairly compressed music that we listen to and we buy from the stores. And what's your take on, for example, lossless versus MP3s? Can you hear the difference? And does it bother you if a file is compressed with your classical music?
I have a quite good machine and a quite good headphone in my bag, actually, the MP3 player. And I like the sound. For me, it's when I listen to that and when I listen to CD, there's not a big difference. I actually try to really see what's the difference. But recently, I think the distance are getting very small. But 5 years ago or 10, 5 years ago was a huge difference. When you live stream on internet, you're like, oh, this is pretty bad quality. And then, the people are like slow motion, or some breaked. But today, when you do live stream, it's pretty high. So it's technology will improve all the time. And the speed of internet will improve. So that helps.
And education as a facilitator is an important thing for you as well, because of course with the foundation you try to reach as many kids as possible, and of course you can't reach everybody just with yourself or just with teachers directly. Technology would be a great way to expand on that and help kids that can't be reached in other ways.
Yes, that's the good thing about technology is that make very personal things public.
Yeah.
But the contents are still very precise, very personal. But there will be so many more people watching it, so make it much bigger field. But when you teach, you can still be one-to-one. So it's and the good thing about it is not just having it in a recording or a DVD, but it's actually actual time. You know, you're learning in the same time.
Yeah.
So that makes big difference. Like when you watch a World Cup final,
Sure.
if you don't watch live, like it's a great game, but I already know the result.
Yes, that's
You know what
true.
I mean? And in
That's
music,
true.
similar in a way. You know?
Yeah, and there's a connection there if
Yeah.
you're watching it live, for
Live,
sure.
yeah.
And also, like, there's a lot of application on the iPad coming out, for example,
sure.
and tablets that are helping people to learn music. But of course, there's a piece of the puzzle, which is the teacher, which really needs to be central still to music education, because technology cannot replace, humans and teachers.
It's hard to replace. I mean, seriously, we can do a lot of fun projects. As I also done a lot of things on apps before. But the real concert in a real concert hall are still the best to go. So I think the best way is to learn basic education on the internet, and then come to see a real concert as a real inspirational content.
Yeah, and finishing up with live. So you're well known for playing, also huge venues, and you're one of the few, classical artists that really does that. And how much does it mean to you to play, big venues where you can actually communicate to music to so many people that wouldn't otherwise be able to either afford or have the chance to see you in smaller venues?
I mean, in a bigger venues. I mean, it's quite challenging because there are certain pieces you can't actually play in a big venues, and for example, like when I'm doing Bach partita, I feel so much easier to play in a hall capacity less than 1,500. And then when you play the same repertoire in a 5,000 seater hall, it makes not as intimate.
Yeah.
So therefore, sometimes if we like to reach the bigger halls, you need to find the right repertoire.
Yes.
Maybe bigger romantic work. And I really believe that. In the future, for me, I'm thinking, to play in a big concert hall, but sometimes also to play in a salon, for certain repertoire is much better.
Yeah.
Or, and sometimes if you work with musicians, like Herbie, like John or even Alicia Keys, this can be in a bigger place,
of course.
So it depends on the piece you're playing.
Yeah, of course. Well, it was absolutely great talking to you, and thanks so much for your time.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.